There comes a time in every narcissistic abusive relationship when they realize they're losing control of you. But what happens next is not random, it's predictable. But if you don't know it's happening, you can get sucked back in just like that. Today we're talking about when a narcissist feels they're losing control.
Right. So what actions would someone have to take to trigger a narcissist and make them feel like they're losing control of you?
Well, I'll tell you, but you're also going to want to stay till the end because you're going to want the do's and don'ts if you're in this situation. So you've decided you want out, you've had enough, you know the relationship's not safe, you're struggling with what to do, but your personality changes because you've gone into survival and protection mode. So you emotionally detach. Right. You start setting boundaries. You stop questioning them on things that really upset you before. They know and sense something's going on. They're losing control before you even say a word.
So why does losing control of you, and all of those things are going to be obvious red flags to a narcissist.
Oh, yeah.
Why would those trigger a narcissist?
Well, first of all, they know you better than anyone. They have made it their life to control and intimidate you. So when you start bucking their system, they start thinking they're risking losing their emotional supply. Right. It could be financial. It could be reputation. It could be their perfect little family world that everybody thinks awesome, but it is tormenting on the inside. They could sense that things around them are starting to crumble, and narcissists don't handle that very well. They want control. It's about dominance, not love.
Right. So if a narcissist were to feel this way, that they're losing control, what are some of the things that they could do to respond?
Well, first of all, you're in this situation where you finally made up your mind, but you're very vulnerable. So they could start love bombing, trying to trick you into believing them this time.
Let's talk about each one of these
okay.
Separately, because I want to make sure so that if it's happening to you, you're like, oh my gosh, that's happening to me. We have clients that are dealing with every single one of those. There's actually 4 of them. That a narcissist will do when they feel like they're losing control of you.
Yeah.
So on the first one, love bombing, we have a client. You can go into more detail, but it's we talk about this.
It's really sad.
Yeah, it really is.
It's sad because she gets to the point where she leaves. Things get so bad because it's financial control, it's emotional, and it gets physical too. So she will leave, and there'll be a month where it's silent. So she's starting to pick the pieces up again. But then, lo and behold, the narcissist shows back up, remorseful, sorry, I'll never do it again. You know, it was the stress of the job and all these excuses. Well, there's been just enough time for her to miss the abuser and not enough time for her to recover from the abuse. And so she gets sucked back in, and she goes back, and there'll be 2 or 3 months of what she thinks is bliss, and it'll come crashing down and repeat the same exact patterns. It causes trauma bonding, but if you don't realize it, you fall for it.
Right.
And that's the sad part about it.
Right. Okay. And then we have gaslighting.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and I know this happens so much and so often, and this is why we talk about the importance of journaling.
Yeah.
Through this situation.
Because your truth is really the only thing that matters. And I know people think, oh, you know, I'm not a writer. Journaling has nothing to do with being a good or bad writer.
Right.
It has everything to do with documentation, because your mind will play tricks on you. You've heard John and I talk about your brain forgets pain. It does. And so your mind will start playing tricks on you. If you don't,
was it that bad?
Right.
Maybe I'm overreacting.
Yeah. They sound sincere. Yeah. Maybe I didn't remember it that way. Maybe that was my fault. Maybe I'm the reason they started getting so angry because I'm jealous or I'm insecure. So all of a sudden they start deflecting or projecting the problem back onto you. And if you don't have things written down and writing things down the way they happen, right after they happen, your brain will remember that. So these are patterns that we're trying to get you to recognize. So gaslighting is extremely manipulative. And if you don't write your truth down, you will start believing those lies again. And somehow it will start reversing itself for you to start saying those things. Maybe it wasn't that bad. Maybe I'm just asking for too much. Maybe no relationship's perfect. Those are the things that you'll start saying. But if you go back and you read your journal to the point that made you decide I'm done, your brain will remember, nope, not going there. Because how many times have they lied to you before?
So we've talked about love bombing. We've talked about gaslighting. Now, number 3 is anger and intimidation.
Yeah. They could result to threats. Especially if you have children, threatening you with losing custody or getting kicked out of the house. You're going to have nothing. These things are very scary. Legally, they're almost always not true, especially with all of the clients that we've had for the last 3 years. It's all about getting you to get back in line, start being controlled again, and being too afraid to take your freedom back or the next steps to getting your freedom back. So the raging and the intimidation are ways for you to be too afraid to move forward. And that's sad because it is scary. You know, and so it is intimidating.
Let's talk about what happened to you and what happened to one of your clients, both very, very similar. About the threats of publishing something that's private out on social media, out on the internet, to kind of intimidate you to stay silent.
It's a form of blackmail, and it is scary because you know when you're in a relationship, marriage, you share things that are intimate. Sometimes you don't even realize that they've taken pictures or videos or things like that. But when you think about being married to that person or in a long-term committed relationship, it's just an intimate thing you may share, but not to be weaponized against you. Because I mean, I would have died if things would have gotten out on the internet.
Yeah, you could have lost your job.
Yes, but it's considered defamation of character. It's actually illegal, and I did have to file legal actions against mine, and so did our client, because that is breaking the law, and it is intimidating, and those are the things that I insisted on it being erased, which it was, and so did our client. So there are things that you can do legally, but you do need to get the court involved if they're threatening you with publishing something on the internet that is private that could damage your reputation.
Okay, let's talk about the 4th action that a narcissist could take to try to manipulate us when they feel like they're losing control, which is smear campaign and replacement.
Yes, they will definitely threaten to ruin your reputation, smear you in the community, smear you in the church, smear you with the neighbors, people that you work with. And so you obviously may not even know about these smear campaigns because they may start like mine did. He felt he was losing control. So he started planting these little seeds in groups of my friends, my family, saying things that undermined my mental capacity. Like he was saying that I was having anxiety and that he was worried about my mental health because I was so stressed out at work. So he disguised it as concern, but he was planting these little seeds because if I were to leave, he had already laid this foundation that I had mental issues, I had anxiety, I was taking pills. I mean, it was really bad. And of course, I had no idea that it was going on. So setting these little traps when they think when they're basically setting it up if you do leave, so they have their story and their narrative of lies out there already. You don't even know it. It happened to you. I mean, she set that whole narrative when you said you thought that you made a mistake and
Yeah,
wanted out.
I thought we should get a divorce. So this just isn't working. Let's get a divorce, which is the number one thing that you shouldn't do if you're thinking or contemplating divorce, is even say it. And we talked
ready.
about this in
Right.
in a podcast 2 podcasts ago, what
Yeah.
not to do
Yeah.
when you're thinking of divorce, and I learned that lesson the hard way. But she created a smear campaign telling everybody that I was physically abusing her. That's why we were getting a divorce.
Well,
So-
and it set the narrative
Yeah.
to make you look like the bad guy, and you didn't even realize it. You're thinking that this is going to be a private situation. The marriage is just not working out. You're both miserable, but you had no idea she was sprinkling that little false narrative into all the groups. So everyone had this preconceived notion that you were a wife batterer. And then, so when your marriage failed, everyone's like, oh, well.
And so that's, when we mention these 4 different actions that narcissists can take, these can cause us to be pulled right back in.
Right.
The love bombing, the gaslighting, the intimidation, the anger, and then, of course, the smear campaigns.
Or threat of replacement.
Or threat of replacement, right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Or
well, I
even
get somebody better,
right.
or I could find somebody like that,
Yeah.
or they start bringing up names of people that you might know, like somebody at their work that might be cute or whatever. All of a sudden, they're complimenting that. They're, oh my gosh, you're not going to believe what Beth did. She was so awesome today. She is really sharp. All of a sudden, you're starting to get jealous. That's what that tactic's all about, making you think you can be replaced, or making you think, wow, well, if I leave, then someone else is going to step into my place, and they're going to get the better person.
Yeah.
All of that that is lies. That person is still the same narcissist. All they're doing is shifting the strategy to where you're now doubting yourself. You're now going, well, they never really talked about that person before.
Right.
They never complimented that woman before. And now all of a sudden you're getting insecure about yourself.
So at the top of the podcast, we talked about, we're going to share some do's and don'ts with you on what to do if you're in this situation where you know that you can't move forward in this relationship any longer. You know this person's a narcissist. It's never going to get any better. It's only going to get worse. So what are the things that we need to do, and what are the things that we shouldn't do?
Well, we talked a little bit about what we need to do, and that's remaining status quo. Right. Don't change your personality. Don't change, and I know how hard that is, but don't do anything drastically different than you would normally do. If you get upset about them coming home late, get upset about it. If you question something, question it. Even if you no longer care, remaining status quo keeps them off of being on guard, and it lets you continue with your plan.
Right.
What not to do is don't tell them.
Don't tell them.
Don't tell them. Like John said, don't say, I'm leaving you, or I'm going to do, I made that. We both made that mistake.
Made a mistake. Yeah.
Big mistake. We don't want you to make the same mistake. Once you say it and you're not ready, you've literally started a war that you're not prepared to fight. And they fight dirty. They could do one of those 4 things that we talked about. You would fall for it because you're not mentally or physically or documenting, you're not prepared for that war. So making sure you're prepared before delivering that news is critical. It is critical. So do not give them your playbook and tell them your plans until you're ready, and don't change your behavior. Just it's status quo until you are ready to execute your plan. It is so much different. By then you'll have your attorney, you'll have the documentation that you need, you will have a plan of action. Emergency funds, all of these things.
Frozen your credit, all the things that we talk about.
Yes. Yeah. So that's huge. If you have any questions, just put them in the comments, because we're always in the comment section. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to hear, what have you tried? What are you thinking about?
If any of these things have happened to you and how you dealt with them, also,
or if you're
warn others.
struggling now,
right? Or if you're struggling now, and how we can help you with that. Please check out all the links in the description, and please subscribe if you found this information valuable, which I hope you did. because both Melissa and I have gone through this,
Yeah.
and we don't want you to either.
Yeah. Learn from our
learn
mistakes.
from our mistakes, right? So please subscribe to this channel.
And like the video.
Right, and like the video. We
Yeah.
greatly appreciate it. We'll be back next week with more information.